I'd like to just say something in regards to what Sally had read about worry. One thing about that Baba had told me directly not to worry. He's been saying this to the whole world, but I got to hear it personally. And when he said that, later I thought, how am I going to not worry? You know, it's not something that's really in my hands that much. The mind just does what it does. So I thought the only way I'm going to solve this is by asking Baba to make it possible. To make it possible for me not to worry. Because he can do anything. So why not take advantage of it? And I said, so I did. I contacted Baba in those days and asked him if he would see to it that I didn't worry so that I could obey him and not worry. Do you know that since that time, my worries have been reduced to such an extent that I don't even know if I'm still worrying anymore. And I think that what Baba did is two things. First, he helped me in my own mind, but the second thing is circumstances. He helped me not have the circumstances that would really cause me to worry a lot, or to worry a little. And I found that throughout the years, this is true. And one of the things that I think that we all have to understand about how Baba works and how we work with him, he doesn't need to be physically in the body for you to do this, because the mental world is everywhere. I mean, he picks up on it the moment that you have the thought. And that is to ask him that you would like him to help you so that he makes it possible to do the things that he has wished for us. Without his help and giving it to him, will you get yourself out of the way that you're going to be doing this and you're going to be okay and obeying him and carrying out all his instructions and doing everything that God ever wanted, isn't the way I see it. And I don't think, and I think Baba waits for the time that you just put it in his hands, because he's the one that's capable. He is the one that's in you. He is the avatar. He's in everything. And one of the things I was going to talk about this evening is the experience that Baba has compared to our own. And I think that this is really important. I don't know that all the so many Baba lovers are really aware of what Baba's consciousness is in compared to ours, because unless there is some description of it, well, you get the understanding, of course, that, he says that he has got the highest consciousness, that he is an infinite bliss, infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite existence, that he's the only reality. So these words have meaning, but we don't always get the meaning. We get the words, but what does it really mean to be infinite existence and being everywhere in everything and being the self, or the one self that is our own self and all other selves, that there's only one self. So one thing I wanted to say about that, and I hope I'm not talking over people's heads or things that are not really pertaining to your everyday life, but the life that Baba experiences, his life, is that he sees, and he has said this, I'm not just saying it myself, he says that he sees himself as the one who is everyone. The one self behind all the bodies and all the minds and all the hearts of one and all beings everywhere. Now, everywhere is a big place. Everywhere doesn't mean just on this little speck of a planet or just in our own little group. It means throughout the cosmos, throughout the universe. And he sees himself as the self of every living thing that is a self. Every living thing. Subhuman, human, advanced conscious beings, and all of the other beings that are masters. But the master, I don't know how to say this, there is only one self in existence. One self that exists. And that self imagines itself as a dream, like you would have a dream that you are everyone in your dream. And what is everyone in the dream supposed to do? They're supposed to wake up. That's what they're supposed to do. And Baba has been known as the awakener. He wakes you up to what your real consciousness and state is. Now, one easy way of, I guess, looking at it is that just as there's an ocean of water, and there can be a bubble on the ocean or a drop, but when that drop touches the ocean, what happens to it? It becomes the whole ocean. It doesn't become a half ocean it becomes the whole ocean. Now, in Baba's terminology, he is the ocean of consciousness, fully conscious. So when your consciousness touches the ocean of consciousness, what happens to you? You wake up to experience yourself as the ocean now, with all of its bubbles and other drops everywhere that there is. This is why he can help people to become that. It's his mission. It's his work. It's his job description. You know, he has a job description to make you everything.
Excuse me, I didn't want to interrupt that much, but I did want to hear the answer to David's question about...
He's coming to that.
Oh.
No, I wasn't. What was the question?
Finish what you're saying. I was just saying, when you, in 1961, saw Baba, and you had that first eye-to-eye contact.
Okay, yes, I remember that. Okay. Now that you've said it, I remember it. The first thing he did, as soon as I came into the room, and this is the first time I saw Baba, he just motioned for me to come over to him, and he embraced me in his arms and gave me a big hug, and he kissed me on both cheeks and had me sit right near him. And then he asked me how I had come. So my first impression of Baba was like a long-lost son that had one day come home. And as far as his eyes, there was an incident which happened later in a visit in which I had been thinking about saints, that I had read that they do not look into your eyes because their power that they have is such that it would disturb your mental balance. So they never want to look directly into your eyes like that. But then I also knew, because I was sitting right near Baba, that he was not a saint. He was the maker of saints. He was the master of masters. You know, for him, that would not be a problem. And I didn't concern myself that way. So I wanted to look into Baba's eyes. But Baba, in the meantime, asked me what I was thinking. So I said, Baba, I was thinking that I'd like to look into your eyes because I think that I would like to see you like that. I would like to see you look into your eyes. I wanted him to look into my eyes also. But he wasn't doing that. He was just listening, but he was glancing here and there. You know, he wasn't really looking directly into my eyes. So I thought, oh, well. So I happened to look down, And then when I looked up again, he was looking straight at me. Straight. We were looking eye to eye, just like that. And you know what happened? I saw that he had brown eyes. I never thought about it before. And then I thought, well, is that all there is to it? But then later, I began to think about what had happened. And then I became aware that when I looked up to his eyes, when I looked up, there was a certain part of me, and this is hard to explain that part, that didn't look up. There was a certain part of my psyche, you might say, that did not look up. And physically I looked up. Physically I looked into his eyes. But there was a certain part that did not. Now, I felt later that that's how Baba shielded me from whatever energy or whatever could have been disruptive. So I remember that part about the eyes. And also, there's a poem which I had written. I have written quite a number of poems in 2010. And I'm going to read this poem because it pertains to what it is that the Master's view is. And here it is. It's called Dark Eyes. Get my glasses. I need glasses for my eyes. Here it is. Okay. What is behind those dark brown eyes? What do they see that I cannot? The making of my mind, the thoughts of all beings, be they of the underworld or the bliss of heaven, or just the life of men and the many creatures in your world. Those are the eyes of the mind and heart. So much love behind that penetrating gaze. What do they see that I do not? Someday, I am told, my eyes will see the truth. So much love in this world, it's a shame to miss it. Someday will certainly come, but first destiny will need to play its hand. I will need to see what is not real. Now you are looking at me with those dark brown eyes, filled with love and light. What will I see when you let me look through them? That's the key, that Baba wants us to be able to see as he sees, to be conscious as he's conscious. His mission is not just to tell us how to behave and give us rules for behavior in this world. His mission is to help us get to that consciousness that he has. He wants to bring us up to the highest consciousness. That's his purpose in coming. That's where the liberation is. Not just to fulfill our wishes for mundane, everyday things, or even to keep us here in the mundane. He wants to bring us to his state, his experience, the highest experience. And I know that that's true because when I was with Baba, and this I think was in 1961, I was getting ready to leave. There was a lot of people there. I was getting ready to leave, me and my brother Edward, and Baba raised his hand up like this. He raised his hand up and he went like 4 steps above his head, like that. And Erich was reading his gestures. And Baba was saying, one day I will give you the highest consciousness. And he repeated it again to me and my brother. And then he dismissed us at that point. So that consciousness is due to come. I wish I could say I have it now, but I can't. Right now, all I'm doing is talking about my own experiences with Baba and what he said and did at the time, to share it with all of you. By the way, if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate, you can ask me. But until that happens, there is something that Sally was reading about the experiences. There was like 3 different things that she was reading. And one of them reminded me of this other poem that I had written because it pertained to that. And it was called Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate. And I'll read you this one, because all of my poems are really true things that I've come to understand. And they're not just, frivolous or flowery things, as so many poems are. Today, there was a lot of love in the world. You may not have seen it because of the clouds. Earthquakes that kill hundreds or thousands. Tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, maybe a meteor hit that can wipe out so much life on the planet. Nature's disasters that we call an act of God. Then there are the acts of some men, murderers, muggers, hate mongers, civil and national strife of all kinds, political, religious, family conflicts, and wars. A lot of pain in a most amazing variety of ways. Yet there is a sun, but there are also clouds that hide the brightness and the life-giving energy of the sun. If I were God and I saw all this, I would want to do something to make things better for both the ignorant and the wise. But you are the one, the Son of all life and love, the Master of all things. You took upon yourself the mission to raise the consciousness of the world so we may see the truth for ourselves. When you come, you punch a big hole in the clouds, however many and dark they may be. Your sunshine, which is always there, can now be seen in the midst of any misery. Those who follow your beam join your light beyond the clouds. O Lord, Savior of the blind, the day is beautiful beyond measure where you come from. To see your cloud-piercing ray is to follow you beyond the clouds that hide you. Then lo, heaven's gates are open, while the battle rages below. If anyone has any question you'd like to ask. I know everybody here, and I love you all, you're my friends and everything, and we always talk. When we're talking, we always have so much to say, and now you're silent. Okay, here's a brave soul. What is it?
Can you reflect back from when you first met Baba till now, till the present time, what has been the most significant change you think in your life?
The understanding of what the experience that Baba has. I mean, look, I read the books about him describing various things or the story of his life and such. But to actually start to think personally about that kind of experience, if I were to have it in my life, to be everywhere and everything, beyond all imagination. I mean, I can't even begin to relate to that as a personal experience. I can relate to it that he says he experiences that, you see, and that's how he can do all that he does for everybody. But for me to actually experience that, where he would bring me to that point where I'm in my real self and not just some imaginary self that I think I am, that has been probably one of the major awarenesses that in recent years I have come to realize and think about, and that it is not just something that Baba has, but something that I must have, that I must realize his true nature and self. And I know that I'm just not going to do it because I say I want to experience that. I think that this is what he's bringing me to. And that's why I'm having those thoughts. You see, these thoughts just don't come randomly. I mean, he gives you these thoughts so that you can prepare. He's preparing you for what you're to be, what you're to be aware of. And that's what he's doing for the world. But of course, everybody goes at their own pace. You see, he works with each person according to their own abilities to receive that. And the way Baba put it, he said, well, look, I don't give you anything. I remove the obstacles that prevent you from having this experience. This is what he calls the sanskaras, the mental impressions that keep you bound. And he has to free you from those impressions. You don't even know what they are because they're also subconscious, and much of it is evolutionary, which reminds me of what Baba talked about the saints and yogis, advanced souls, people with higher consciousness but not God realized. And he said the difference between the perfect masters and the avatar and the persons that are still within the limitations of the mind, regardless of what their stage of advancement may be, however advanced they may be, the difference is that they cannot remove the bindings and the obstacles that prevent you from realizing the infinite, because they're not at that level themselves. They themselves need help. So, but they can bring you up to a higher level, to their own level at best. And then when and he brought out the reason why. They can remove a lot of your impressions that stand in your way from your present life and even some of your past lives. But they cannot remove your evolutionary impressions that goes way back from the time when you were in the subhuman forms and in the, he said, they can't go that far back. And therefore they cannot give you, God, they can't make you consciously one with the reality of your own being. So he says, that's why it is so important to have the guidance and the help of a perfect being, somebody that's already, that's a perfect master that can reach back into those areas of your past that to remove all those obstacles. And of course, once they're removed, then that means enlightenment. That means that you get it. So that's what I remember that Baba was explaining why perfect master is so important. You know, these Tippen lectures, there's a book called the Tippen Lectures. It deals with this whole thing over and over and over again. The whole book is about the importance. Baba was really telling those people, his very earliest disciples, in 1925, how important it was for them to have the companionship of a perfect master who can remove all of those impressions. This is where he explained a lot of this here. And now I'm going to tell you something that is completely off the wall. I went to Disney World, and they had a restaurant called the Tippen restaurant.
The Tiffen Lounge.
The
Tiffen, T-I-F-F-N.
Tippen.
Tippen Lounge? Tippen
Yeah.
Lounge.
And because we were also on our way to see this exhibition of Avatar, which of course wasn't Mayor Baba, but it was the movie Avatar that they had. And we passed it and we said, "Is it Tiffen?" We were just reading the Tiffen lectures. He said, "Well, because we're reading the Tiffen, let's go into the Tiffen lounge." It was only the name, you see, that was the same. We had the best lunch we ever had. It has nothing to do with my talk.
Did you have tea? Did you have tea there?
Well-
Tippen mean tea?
Yeah, it means lunch.
Lunch. Tiffen means lunch, yeah. And that's why it was called the Tiffen Lectures. That was the name of the book. Tiffen Lectures meant lunch lectures. It's what Baba gave all these incredible understandings and teaching things that the world has never heard before over lunch. He had doing it over lunch. Some other person might want to do it on the televisions and on the, make a big thing out of. This was just given to the people that were present with him over lunch. And what explanations he was giving, like the world had never heard. That's a fact. The world has never known these things in the spiritual history or any of it. Even when Baba went out to contact these monks, they were on different planes of consciousness. He went out. Whoever knew about monks?
Right.
There's nothing in spiritual history about monks. There were the best that you heard was that there were people that were advanced, but any real description of who they are and what their consciousness was, and that they were of so many different planes, and they were actually there, and they were on it, and he went to meet them and contact them and give them a push forward and to make use of them in his own work. Whoever knew such a thing? Never. And for the first time in the history of the world, he revealed that. And I remember because, listen, I made this movie, Mayor Baba, Avatar of the Age, and which is the only film that has him traveling to contact these monks. There was never any other films made of that. And there was a nice section in there. And in the film, we used Baba's own words to describe what he was doing with them. So there was no interpretations and things of the sort. You heard it, straight from what he had conveyed. But it is a fact, too, that when those films were made so many years ago, there was no sound. There was no sound with the film. We had to add the sound of the words he had used that we found in various places of what happened and what he was saying about it. So then it was matched up to the picture like that. So that's how it worked.
Irwin,
Yeah.
I've got a question. I heard you, when we were talking to Bill, you were telling Bill that Samadhi is waiting for you. I heard you say that
That's right.
you're planning a trip in
In the fall.
So my question is, you've been with Baba close or over 60 years, and you've had such close contact to Baba. What draws you back to Mehrabad, to the Samadhi?
When you go into the Samadhi, it's like taking a bath. It is a cleansing of your thoughts and feelings. it's, that's why people will sit in the Samadhi and they will just, I guess you could say, meditate on Baba or think about, but you have to do anything. You see, Baba worked in such a way where all you had to do was be in his company, in his presence. That's why when I visited Baba and I was with him, if anyone wanted to meditate around him, he would tell them to stop. He said, you don't need to do that, I'm right here. So what do you meditate on when you're meditating? You're meditating on God. Here's God in human form. Where's the need to have to start to try and imagine it in your own mind? You know. So he would just tell them. But Baba was so friendly. You know, Baba, I have to really tell you that the human side of Baba was really wonderful. He was such a loving person. I would say that even if a person didn't want to believe in his divinity, which after a while would be hard not to believe in it, but even so, if you didn't believe in his divinity, you couldn't help but say, this is the most loving man that you ever met. Because he was so really concerned about your welfare, your well-being. He was always out for your own best interest, you know, for your, and how you could best be helped within your thoughts and feelings and in your practical life. So this loving nature of Baba was really his humanness, his human side. Someone once asked him, Baba, are you really human? And Baba said, I'm more human than you are. You know, that was his answer. More human. Well, if he is the highest of, and he created everything, creates human beings, of course he would be human. He knows everything about what he made. It was always hard for me to think that I was actually made. I was created. It was like, what? I mean, I don't know how I just get here when you get born and all. You know, I have no memory of anything. But to think that someone made me, you know, was hard to swallow for a time. But then I thought, well, I had to get like this somehow.
Irwin,
Yeah.
did you have any trouble when you told me before a couple times that Baba said you could come, when you first wrote a letter to him that you wanted to meet him, right?
I wanted to meet him.
You were coming to meet him?
Yeah, I was coming to see
And he
him.
said you could come and meet him for an hour?
Yes, for 1 hour. My first contact with Baba was through a letter. And I had read this book, Listen Humanity, which is what really told me about Mayor Baba and who he is. And I read that part where he said he was the highest of the high. And I said, oh, I've never met the highest of the high before. I think I would like to meet the highest of the high. Yeah, I didn't even question it at all. I said, this is good. You know, I've got to go and see him. But then it was like a fire. I was like on fire to do so. It wasn't just a intellectual decision, something you reason out. It was a fire. I mean, it was like, wow, this is what I really have to do. This is my next step. And so that's how it started. So I wrote to Baba, and I said that I was planning to come to see him, and that I expect to be leaving very shortly, within a week or so. And I thought I could work my way aboard a ship because I had no money to be going anywhere. I couldn't pay my way through. So I thought I'd work my way on a ship. And Baba immediately responded to my letter. He said that I could come for 1 hour only, and wherever I would be, he would have someone come and pick me up to take me to where he was at that time. And that I should come for 1 hour and be prepared to return with his instruction. That was it, you know, so I had to think, do I really want to go halfway around the world for just 1 hour? And, you know, you're not going to sightsee or anything, you're not going to see anything. You just go all the way straight there, 1 hour, and then straight back. And that was it. So I had to see how sincere I really was about, you know, truly meeting him and just going for the sake of meeting him. And then I remembered something I read in the book. That book was a good one. It said in the book that even if the worst scoundrel were to stand before me and I had the wish, I could make him realize God in less time than the flash of a second. So I said, there you have it. I'm not going to prejudge. Whatever he thinks is the best thing, that's what's going to happen. Because there's no limitations here, no holds barred. And I decided to go. But, of course, this is quite a tale, but I wasn't able to leave within the week or two that I thought. I couldn't get a ship. And anyhow, it wasn't until about 6 months later that I actually made the trip. And that's when, if it wouldn't have been that, even then, Baba made it possible. Because I wrote to Baba and I said, 6 months and I haven't been able to come, and I can't see where money should stand in the way of such an ideal, but I know if it's your will, I'd be able to come. See, providing it's your wish. So I took the whole thing and I put it in his hands and I said, certainly God can do anything. If he's God, he can make it possible. Back comes a letter with one sentence in it, just one sentence. Don't worry, circumstances will adjust themselves. That was it, love, Mayor Baba. He took the whole thing. 1 week later, I was there. I was there. Circumstances absolutely adjusted themselves. I'm not going to go, that's a really great tale, but I'm not going to do that now. But just the same, that's how I got there, you know, like that. And he said that one thing, and that's when Baba asked me when I got there, he said, how did you come? So I said, Baba, it was your will. In emotion, I should stand up and repeat that to the group of people that were present in the room. There must have been about 15 people there. And I did. I said, I'm here because it is Baba's will. And I knew how true that was, because for 6 months I was trying and nothing would work. And then all of a sudden, when he said that, everything worked. You know. So I think probably I've run out of time by now.
Thank you.
So, Jerry,
So